Welcome, everyone. Good morning and welcome. My name is Mary Bartkowski, and we are doing part of our mini car wash PD series. For our mini car wash PD series, what we do is we go ahead and we get in, we get the learning, we get out in 15 minutes or less, guaranteed. Now today I have the privilege of introducing you to Joanie Wright. She is part of the Orange team, and she's going to be spotlighted. There we go. And Joanie, you can go ahead and begin whenever you're ready. You are a co-host, so you can share your screen if you want to.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Joanie Wright, and I am an ELA teacher here at Proximity Learning. And I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to talk about how to keep your students engaged in a virtual classroom. So student engagement in a virtual classroom. I know that's a big deal for us. So that's one thing that I think that even though in the midst of this pandemic or just virtual period that we all can try to benefit from. So our agenda for today is the group will identify what is true engagement, student engagement, and what does it look like? Also, what does it feel like in the virtual classroom? Also, what are some examples of student engagement strategies? How can the instructor incorporate different categories of student engagement strategies into the virtual classroom? So that's what we will cover on today. So let's look at the picture first. What's something that you may see taking place? If you would like, drop your answer in the chat, but what's something that you see taking place in this picture? Does this picture show true student engagement? Briefly talk to a neighbor, briefly review some responses from your picture and tell me why. And then we're going to talk about from our discussions, record 1 or 2 ideas about what is student engagement. So just a few moments. All right. So what is student engagement, you ask? Well, student engagement is the motivation to learn. It's persistence to work through challenges. When we tell the students to grapple with the text, to struggle a little bit, sometimes it's independent, sometimes it is group learning that's taking place. Now, students are engaged in constructing their own understanding of knowledge by thinking deeply, because that's what we want them as teachers to do, to think more critically, as well as make connections to prior information and real world applications. When I was teaching in the actual classroom, concrete classroom, as we like to call it, I love to give students texts that they grappled with, but that they also made a connection to. Why? Because those are the learning experiences that they cherish the most. So whenever they think about a real life event, when they think about, oh, I went through this, guess what? They're going to remember that story, okay? And that'll be something that they share with others for years to come. Now, let's look at this. It says the 4 pillars of student engagement. Here are some questions for us to consider. Can a lesson or a presentation be 100% student-centered and engaging? What do you think? Do you think it can be? Now, are there times you just have to give students content which may not totally be active engagement? Or do you think everything should be student-centered? I know when I was in the actual classroom, there were times where I actually, as we call it, front-loaded our kids if it was a topic that they had no knowledge of. So even though they were not interacting with each other actively the way we may have wanted them to by getting in your groups, talk to a partner, they were still being engaged to an extent. So everything you do in a classroom pretty much is student-centered. And us as educators, that's something we have to keep in mind. Let me check the chats to see if anybody answered any questions. Yeah, you said absolutely. Okay, yes, I agree. And maybe not 100%. There are times. And yes, I think that's a really great question. As an educator, that's something I have to ask myself. Even I teach Sunday school, and I have to think about the people that I'm talking to then. How can I get them more engaged? But by giving them real life scenarios where they actually have participated in something to jog their memory, something to make them open up and share. Once you do that, you have opened up a can of worms. You're going to be, mind's going to be blown. They're going to want to share experiences. Why? Because now it feels like a safe place for me to share. When they realize, oh, you care enough to try to connect this to me, because they know our jobs are hard. Okay. But when they realize, oh, you care enough to try to connect this to me. Okay, so let me give you something. And then they begin sharing. And guess what you're doing? You're bonding. Okay. You're sharing experiences with them and you're building memories and you are engaging a lifelong learner. You're building that bridge for them. Now, student engagement should shift in terms of placing less of one's focus on teaching the content and more of a focus on what students will be doing to learn and understand the content. Because you can have a great lesson, but those babies will not have understanding. Thing you said, they will be lost. Okay, it's one thing for the teacher to know the lesson, but it's something else when the student knows the lesson. Because guess what they're going to do? They're going to go travel to classroom, or they're going to tell their friends, they're going to send a text, hey, guess what I learned today, blah, 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 blah. And some of them will actually research it. Okay, when I was teaching in the actual classroom, or even during the pandemic, I had some researchers. So they wanted to know. They love stories and they love research. And they were like, oh my goodness, well, this is what I found. And they would send me the link. And they're sharing, they're opening up. Okay. So when we are talking about engagement as the teacher, we should focus on how you're teaching and what the students are doing during the lesson. Teachers should make gradual shifts in how you approach teaching. And I wholeheartedly agree with that because I have taught kids from various backgrounds. I've taught them from the urban setting. I've taught them from the rural setting. I've had them in the private school setting. I've had them from ages 5 to 19, some of them 21, so you have to think about the ages and the mindsets of these babies. Okay, it's very important for them. Even during the first phase, I put it like that, of the pandemic, when everybody was trying to learn how to be virtual, it was hilarious. I'm sorry, we had parents on there trying to learn, but it was just amazing, the different faces, the different things you would see, the different experiences, even as we're talking about the lesson and how so much of the lesson at that time connected with what was going on inside the households of those babies and how they just opened up and they shared. And even a year or so after that, guess what? They be like, I remember you told us this. I remember you taught us that. That's something they're going to carry with them. Okay. So what we're doing is we're like farmers. We're planting those seeds. Okay. You're sowing seeds of learning into the minds of these kids. Now, let's look at how different strategies, okay? Because I know online, it can be a bit difficult. You're not there physically where you can actually put your hand on the desk and say, Jimmy, are you listening? Or Sarah, what did you get out of this? So it's really different. So we have to think of different ways. But that's the thing about learning. That's the thing about technology is multifaceted. You can do so much with it, so many different ways. So one thing that's important, know your students by name. That's hard sometimes, or sometimes you may have 5 different Camerons, like I've had it, and at first. So I'd be like, if one of them tall, big Cameron, little Cameron, or they have a nickname, as long as it's not nothing crazy. I may call you Little Pookie if that's not your name on the streets, okay? Now, knowing your kids by name, it's a big deal because they're gonna try to learn your name. Okay, they're gonna be like, Mom, this is my teacher. Dad, this is my teacher. They want to make a connection with you. So one way we can make a connection with them is trying to remember their name, even if you have to write their names down. I mean, I know when we're online, it's easy to try to remember who this person is because their name is right there on the screen, but putting their face with the name, okay? Now, creating videos for your online classes, saying welcome video. Again, we want to make them feel as comfortable as possible because learning is very important. And if the child does not feel comfortable, if they do not feel like this is an open environment for them, guess what? They're not going to want to share. They're not going to want to open up to you. They won't even want to send anything in the chat. They won't want to submit the assignments. But if they know that you care, guess what? They're going to give you everything they have, whether it's in person, whether it's virtually, in the student hangout box, wherever they are, they're going to try to give you everything they have. Now, another thing, tracking the student performance. We know a lot of children are competitive, very much so, okay? They love to be like, I got 98%, what did you get? Or this is what I got last week, mom, but look what I got now. They love to track, they love to know, okay? Give them that measure of learning because that makes them become a stakeholder in what they're doing, okay? That helps them to get actively involved. Oh, I better get here on time, they're assigning bonus points. Oh, I better do this. Because now they realize, oh, I have skin in the game. Oh, I have something invested in this. It's not just my face showing up, but this is what I do. Okay. Like I said, when I was in the physical classroom, I would put the kids' the names up beside what they scored or showing them what the percentile was. Oh, they love that. They had their own little corner and I put it in the student corner, not just the data area. We had to have a data wall. So I would have one there on the data wall to show for the administration team when they would come in, but I also put it in the student corner because if you're getting hand sanitizer, you're sharpening your pencil, give you something to look at, and yes, I had positive quotes, but they're like, oh, this standard, I missed this standard. Oh, okay, I grew in this one though. So now they're beginning to ask, are you doing tutoring? What can I do for makeup work? Or can we go back over this? They are involved. They actually care. Okay. They are concerned. And guess what? When they're at home in the car or if they are sitting down next to their parent, they're probably talking their head off. The parent's going to hear everything, every conversation. And now they begin to understand my child is actively involved and they're participating in their discussions, in their online learning. And guess what? They're engaged. Okay. You didn't have to come up with this big old rule format block. You just got them involved by showing that you care, okay? All right, and let me see what y'all got in the chat. Okay, so we're gonna move on. Now, continue, track their performance. One thing I did throughout the 9 weeks, I did not stop. When we did assessments every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, I put that up there. They knew when it was time to look at it and they were ready. They were not wasting any time. I absolutely loved it. When I was teaching online at the beginning of the pandemic, I did the same thing. I shared my screen. I showed them what they had. They absolutely loved it. Okay, so that's one way to get our kids involved. They'll even suggest things to you. They will have ideas that they want you to try. And as an educator, I would say this, you can never be too old to learn. So sometimes the kids have something that you want to look at, okay, that may be worth it. Now, it says video analytics help to see when students struggle, so you can step in before it's too late. I absolutely love that. That saved one of my former students 2 years ago at the beginning of this pandemic. He was struggling. He was an introvert. He had trouble. And he did not do well on the test because he suffered from anxiety. Well, when I got him by himself to tutor him virtually online, guess what? He opened up and he performed better. So you have to know your kids, okay? You have to understand how every child learns. Every kid learns differently. Not all of them are the same. However, they can all learn. And so that's what we have to think about, keeping them engaged. So ways to track or measure our engagement. Which students are watching the videos? I love this with Common Lit. It showed me who was turning their work in, who was doing this, who was doing that, how long they spent on a question or how long they spent watching something or if they watched it at all. And then how much of each video they watched. When they're watching the videos, as soon as the videos are assigned, or do they wait until the day before the exam? I caught so many of them at the last minute doing this because I would put a timer on some of my videos. And I'm like, can you open it back up? I said, I can't. It's time for you to take your test. It's time for you to submit your project. Well, and I said, no, you have got to learn to be focused and organized. And so they kind of help them build later on. Now, also quiz results. Kids love that. I love to include the class as a whole because when we are, I tell them it's important to celebrate each other as a whole. Okay. Yes, I'm going to shout out some people, but I don't want anybody feeling left out. This is an inclusive situation because they all are putting in together. Very important. So in the closing, this is what I have left, some tips and strategies, and I would be glad to share this with you. It's a wonderful article, and it's talking about how to improve your participation in the virtual classroom. I found it very thoughtful and insightful. I also will share a video that I have with you guys. If you have any more questions, please reach out to me at jwright@proxlearn.com. I've enjoyed sharing my screen and my presentation with you all, and I hope that you have enjoyed it as well. Thank you.
Joanie, that was fantastic. I truly appreciate that. You really got me thinking about engagement in a different way, and I really liked everything that you had to say. I know that we're right at that 15-minute mark, so this is your opportunity to go ahead and log off and actually try some of these things that Joanie has presented to us.